That's it.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny panel. During the live broadcast, members and officers are asked to please ensure that mobile phones are placed in silent mode and that microphones are switched off whilst not in use. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Helen, do we have any apologies, please?
Good morning. We've got apologies for Councillor Carney, Councillor Meekins and Councillor Roy.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is a request to approve the minutes. We're being asked to approve the public minutes at pages 3 to 18 of the public agenda pack as a correct record of the meeting which took place on the 3rd of November 2025. Can I ask any member who does not agree with the minutes to indicate now? Okay, I see no objections to the proposals to approve the minutes as a correct record of the meeting, so they are now agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is to report additional items for consideration which the Chairman deems urgent by virtue of the special circumstances to be specified. There are no urgent items for consideration today. Agenda item 4 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you inform the meeting now. No hands raised, thank you. Agenda item 5 is an update from Anglian Water. I'd like to welcome and invite those attending for the presentation of this item, and you're already seated, thank you. Can I ask you to introduce yourself and give a brief overview of your role in relation to this matter, and then please go ahead in providing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for inviting us again. I think it's the third year in a row we've been to the committee today. So my name is Grant Tufts. I work in our public affairs engagement team at Anglian Water, so my role is to engage with local authorities, politicians, NGOs, other organisations across the region to explain what we do, hold ourselves to account to yourselves, but also explain a bit more about our investment plans and what we do for the community. I'll hand over to Gavin. Say hello.
Hello everyone, my name is Gavin Naylor. I'm the Regulatory Flow Data Manager, so I'm very much involved with storm overflows and looking at the data that come from our monitors and assessing performance of those monitors as well.
Right, okay, so we've got a few slides. I know there's some questions we got sent through yesterday, so we'll try and get through those as quickly as you can. But I'll do a few slides first just to give some context and an update on some of the things we talked about at the last committee last year we attended. So a bit of background first on Anglian Water's region, just as a reminder of what we do at Anglian Water. So we are the largest water company by geographical area, home to 15% of the population, also the fastest growing population outside of London in our part of the world. We've got 14 diverse counties across that region, including Cambridgeshire, which obviously Fenland sits, and the challenges that brings us in terms of growth and big projects like the reservoir, which we'll get onto later. Most of our land, particularly most of it in Fenland, is below sea level, so that brings its own challenges around managing water in the environment and also taking water out for our customers. We are a water-intensive part of the world in terms of supply and demand. The irony is we have some of the lowest rainfall in the country, in fact in Europe, yet we suffer from flooding as well in the winter, so that's a challenge that we have to try and meet both in all seasons. And obviously we're very agricultural land, so again the water demand is particularly prone around that part of the business world, and we're keen to support growth in that sector too. So I'll just hand over to Gavin to talk a bit about storm overflows. As a reminder, that's one of the topics that we picked up last time, but Gavin, do you want to go through that?
So storm overflows, these occur as a result of combined systems becoming overloaded during high rainfall. So they are sewers that take both sewage and rainwater, and they become overloaded following periods of high rainfall. They take the pressure off the system by releasing excess water to protect homes and businesses. They're all permitted by the Environment Agency, and the vast majority of what they release is rainwater. This is a very old technology, so this is a result of Victorian infrastructure. These haven't been built since privatisation. These days we build separate foul and surface water systems to deal with sewage and surface water. And all the overflows are fitted with an event duration monitor, with an EDM monitor that measures the frequency and the duration of spills. And that's been the case since the 1st of January 2024. And we provide the near real-time data onto our website and onto the national map within 1 hour. Thank you. So just a bit of a dive into performance, specifically in Fendon District Council area. So you can see up here the figures over the last 3 years. So we've got 18 storm overflows. Yeah, all of them have an EDM monitor. They all have coverage. So in 2023, the data is accurate and representative real, but it wasn't 100% coverage, so it didn't give a full picture of visibility. But the data that we did have was accurate from the monitors that we received. And yeah, I think a really important thing to stress is that the number of spills or storm overflow spills is hugely impacted by rainfall. That's the main driver of overflows. And you can see that in the figures. Last year was a very wet year. This year has been very, very dry. And you can see those in the figures that, there's a big difference there.
And also, just sort of, as Gavin said, the majority of those overflows is rainwater.
Yeah.
So the permits are quite key to remember here that we're permitted by the Environment Agency to spill those at times of excess use or flood, which is and the impact on the environment is negligible because the EA obviously gives us permits to do that. But as I say, these are old installed infrastructure. We've got a plan to reduce those spills over the next few years, and it's all published on the website. So each spill, the most sort of serious spills in terms of frequency and duration, were the ones that we will target first within the funding we've got in the current 5 years and beyond.
Yeah. So we'll come on to talking about those planned investments and planned improvements. So I think it's important just first to call out that we're actually surrendering these permits as well. So where we find them when we don't need them, we're giving them back to the Environment Agency, and we're surrendering them and saying, we don't need these, we don't want these. So we've surrendered 10% of our permits in the last 5-year period between 2020 and 2025. And where it's not possible to remove them, we have an action plan to address those. So the Storm Overflow Action Plan, that's a national plan, but we have our own version. So this is to target a reduction of spills of 17% by 2030. And there's a detailed plan for each overflow to ensure that they're not discharging more than 10 times a year over a 10-year average. And the target for that is by 2050. So on our current business plan that we're in now from 2025 to 2030 is geared toward addressing the highest priority ones. So there's £1 billion within that business plan for storm overflow monitoring and improvements. So we're very keen to address that and to back that up with the investment. A big part of that, a big focus of that is dealing with excess water in the catchment. As you guys will be aware, flooding is a complex issue. There's many factors, many stakeholders, and something that we want to focus on and deal with is that excess surface water in the environment and getting into our sewers as well. So, we're focused on removing surface water connections, infiltration, looking at investing in SUDs, so sustainable urban drainage, building storage tanks as well to deal with that excess rainwater before it can then be diverted back into our system safely. When rainfall subsides, when the flows subside, then we return it back to treatment. There's a focus on greater monitoring of jetting and cleaning and maintaining the sewers, and the investment of UV as well, so ultraviolet treatment on some of the sites as well. That's particularly for bathing water areas, so that's killing the bacteria through ultraviolet treatment. And in terms of overall environmental spend, that's going to double to £4 billion and focus on nature-based solutions such as wetlands and SUDs. And so there's a number of our sites where we're building at specific treatment wetlands to deal with treating the sewage. And by 2030, we'll reduce total pollutions to 41% with no serious pollutions. We've had an additional £100 million injected by our shareholders to kind of really laser focus and target those improvements. And we've been spending that money on blockage prevention, on improving assets. We already have an increasing capacity in our systems to do that. So as you'll see, there's a huge focus and kind of dedication and attention given to this. I'll hand back to Grant.
Yeah, and one of those reasons about blockages, which as Gavin mentioned, was particularly one of our focus areas that customers can help us with, and we'll get onto this later on, but Just Bin It is our campaign. You might have seen it advertised on social media or even heard it on the radio or the TV adverts. But basically, this is a campaign we launched sort of earlier this year, because obviously, as we say, 80% of our sewer floodings we face are caused by avoidable blockages. Some statistics here around 35,000 blockages a year on our network, all of which are avoidable, mostly caused by wet wipes and things that shouldn't be flushed down the toilet. The 3 Ps, I know it's early, but it's 3 Ps, pee, poo and toilet paper, only down the toilet, as we say. Bin all the wipes and sanitary products, and obviously bin also the cooled fat, oil and grease from cooking as well. All of those things can cause blockages in our sewers. In fact, another stat we've got is there's 9,500 packets of wet wipes put into our sewers every day across our region, all of which shouldn't be there. So the Just Bin It campaign has been pushing that message across the region. In fact, we've got a partnership with, a good example, Castle Point Borough Council in Essex have put that delivery, and all of their bin lorries now has Just Bin It, bin the white logos and branding all over them. So they've been travelling around Essex, spreading the word there. So again, we're looking for other councils and authorities to help us with that messaging. And what you'll also see in the next few weeks is a seasonal slant on this around the Christmas message around fog. So don't put your turkey fat down the sink as well, please. So it is a perennial challenge for us. We are seeing some improvements. Those areas we do focus on the Just Bin It campaign have seen a massive reduction in people flushing things down the toilet they shouldn't. We do have sort of enforcement powers. We don't want to enforce if we don't have to. We rather persuade people and educate them. But we can literally target hotspot areas and find individual streets, maybe even individual properties that are doing this stuff. But so again, gentle reminder: knock on the door, have a conversation with people to explain what the impacts are of misusing these wet wipes. So it is a hot topic, and again, we'd love the support from the council to spread the message on that going forward. As I'm here, I thought a reservoir update. I know there was some questions on that later, but just to give you a bit of update where we are on the reservoirs. As you know, it's going to supply 250,000 homes a year once it's into supply by 2036. The development consent order is going to hopefully be planned to put in a couple of years' time. Decision due by Secretary of State a year later, and then we're due to start construction by 2030. Currently, we're in consultation 3. That does close end of this week on the 10th of December. So if people have got anything they want to contribute to that, then please do. We've done dozens of public drop-in sessions. Hopefully a few of you have been to them across the villages around Fenland. I went to the most recent community liaison group meeting last week in Chatteris, which was really, really well attended. Some really good discussions there, particularly around the transport and traffic proposals for the reservoir. But again, I encourage people to get involved and have their say, and we'll feedback next year the outcome of that third phase of consultation, and then we'll look to do a fourth phase in a few years' time with a detailed design. But it is progressing. It's an exciting opportunity for the region as well in terms of the immunity it could bring, but more importantly, obviously, it secures that water resilience for the future for the population and beyond. Just a bit of a reminder, I think Gavin mentioned what the £11 billion we're spending in our current AMP, our 5-year business plan period. Some of the things we want to sort of share where that money goes are on the screen. So I mentioned the two reservoirs, or the one in Fenland, there's also one in South Links that's progressing along a similar timeline. We're going to increase monitoring on rivers, so 584 kilometres of rivers now monitored in real time. One of our biggest improvements, I think, and also this does apply to Fenland district, is the more than 1,000 kilometres of water mains replacement. So there's a lot. I think there's several tens of thousands of metres of that in Fenland district coming in the next 5 years as well. We're also increasing storm overflow, storage. As Gavin mentioned, one of the solutions to combat spills is to store more water. So 470,000 cubic metres of water additional being stored when storm conditions before we can treat it and put it back safely in the environment. We're also looking at desal, so not only reservoirs for longer term, but also desalination projects are being looked at. One in Norfolk, one in Lincolnshire, so that's in our long-term water resilience management plan. And there's also reduction in phosphorus. So the Environment Agency obviously monitor and permit us to what the quality of the fine effluent we discharge back into rivers and watercourses. Those targets are ever tightening. So phosphorus in water mainly comes through either through agriculture or through cleaning products, detergents and soaps. We have to try and obviously take those out of the water before we put it back into the rivers. So we're looking at 15% reduction in what phosphorus levels are in that discharge water. And also looking at our carbon footprint, obviously, as most businesses still keen to reduce their carbon emissions, and we're looking at ways to generate energy, particularly things like the reservoirs, where in the longer term try and become more renewable focused. So we're looking at that as well in the next 5 years. So what does that investment look like for Fenland in the next sort of 5 or 4 years now, from up until 2030? About £9.5 million to deliver sort of planned investment. These aren't guaranteed; they're in our plan to be delivered in the next 4 years. And some examples there: some storm overflow reductions in March, and also phosphate removal in Whittlesea and Chatteris, and also looking at some refurbishment work on March Water Recycling Centre as well. But I say these are all planned investments. We haven't got dates and details yet. They're going through our current process to be prioritised and delivered at some point. But when those projects do kick off, we'll have a much more hyper-local engagement with yourselves and other members of the community to explain what that investment looked like, and if there's any disruption or traffic or anything, we would talk to people and explain what we were doing. I think that brings us to the end of our little presentation. So apologies if we sort of went through quite quickly, but I appreciate there's some busy questions, so we thought we'd try and get through as many of those as we can in our time this morning with you. So how do you want to play it, Joe? Do you want to sort of go through each question, or do we...
Sorry, excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. So the item now is open for discussion. So we'll start with questions from members. Anyone's got a question? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Willard here.
Thank you. Are you able to tell us which places in Fenland have the worst problems of storm overflows, and when are those problems likely to be fixed? Particularly in unmonitored areas, you mentioned that you've got monitoring on specific overflows, but there are a lot of subsequent overflows, such as Barker's Lane in March, where every time there's a heavy rainfall, there is neat sewerage overflowing into the street. When can we see problems like this fixed, please?
Thank you very much for your question. So I think just as a bit of background, the council may be aware, but the storm overflows happen across our network. So there's some that happen on the network. These are combined sewer overflows. They can also happen at pump stations, and then also happen at the sewage treatment works as well. And so the places we see the highest numbers of spills is at those sewage treatment works, because they're draining the whole catchment effectively. So the most amount of water collects at those areas. So I've been reviewing the data. So that is the case in Fenland. So the sewage works at Chatteris, Mainey, and in March are the ones with the highest number of spills, which is kind of as we'd expect, because they're draining the biggest areas, the biggest catchments.
And on Barker's Lane, so I spoke to our network team last week. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, so they would have come. But they've got pre-meetings to attend elsewhere. But the network is overloaded. You're quite right; it does spill occasionally in heavy rainfall. It's basically around misconnections, we think, into that network. So Lucy, the network manager, she's going to try and get some funds together to do some investigations early next year into where those misconnections might be. Misconnections are quite a difficult thing to deal with, because what that means is that there's surface water connections, mainly from properties or buildings, that are plumbed into our combined system. So basically, when it rains, all that roof water, surface water, gets into our system, and that can overwhelm it, because the systems really should be built to take foul water mainly. And then so unplumbing those connections is quite a challenge. So it means obviously working with the owner of the property, and also the Environment Agency about where that water should be put. If it can't go into our sewer, where's it going to go? But yeah, we think it is about misconnections in Barker's Lane, and we are looking into that in the new year.
Thank you. I certainly know the residents in that area will be most grateful for any action that can be taken.
Councillor Hay.
Thank you. You partially answered my question. My question was about the number of spills in 2025, and you have mentioned that last year was a lot wetter than this year. But further on from that, would you expect the spills in the second part of the year, which tends to be colder and wetter, to be a higher number? And if so, have you got a more up-to-date figure now that we're nearer the end of the year?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I do have updated figures. So actually, till the end of October, we verify our data on a monthly basis as it comes through from our monitors. So the numbers of spills is the same as 125, the figure that was in the slide. So because of that dry weather, we haven't had any more spills in Fenland District Council since the summer. So you're right in your thinking that as a kind of overall pattern and a general trend in the winter, we do see a higher number of spills because it is historically a wetter period. So there are more spills because there is that very close link between rainfall and spill numbers. Storm overflows are permitted to spill in wet weather linked to rainfall. So if there's ever a spill in dry weather, that's a non-compliance, and obviously that's treated with the highest priority, the highest kind of level of investigation and root cause analysis and kind of investigation for that. But yeah.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to overflows and road flooding, specifically I'm thinking of Leverington now, there seems to be some confusion over what is to do with Anglian water and what is to do with highways. Certainly residents seem to be confused, and sometimes I am. Perhaps you could explain, for the benefit of viewers and also myself, what the difference is, please.
Yeah, thank you. So as we alluded to in the presentation, so we do have combined systems that take surface and foul sewage, but there are also highways have their own drains, so the roads have their own separate systems that they're obviously responsible for maintaining, and so that would be their issue to deal with. So the sewer systems is taking the drainage from houses, from businesses, and then where it's combined systems, there will be some surface runoff.
With our highways, that obviously those misconnections I mentioned, there could be a surface water highways misconnection into our foul system too. So highways are definitely part of the conversation, as Gavin said. There's a multi-agency approach for dealing with flooding. We have got some multi-agency groups in Fenland that are looking at that with highways and us and councillors and parishes involved. But so we do work with highways to try and disconnect those wrong connections of surface water into our network, which then exacerbates the flooding issue. So I can completely understand why residents are confused because there's many people involved. But yeah, where we can prove that the highways are contributing to flooding, then we would have an action plan probably with Cambridgeshire Highways to actually unplug that and put it right. But as I said, that just means that water's got to go somewhere else. So we can't be causing a flood elsewhere by protecting flooding from one spot. So we do need to find a better solution, working with people like the Environment Agency to see whether that water can go back into a watercourse or into a soakaway or storage somewhere.
And as you'll appreciate, these are complex issues. The network is complex, and in response to that, we've set up over the last couple of years an internal team that is specifically dedicated to looking at the network and doing these investigations and identifying misconnections, identifying where excess water is coming into our networks, and then they're the ideal springboard to then, as Grant says, work with those different agencies for a plan to kind of unplug all of those misconnections. And we've seen some examples where even like ponds and things have been connected into the water. So 1,000 cubic meter pond has been coming into the sewer network where it shouldn't be. And that, obviously causes a huge issue in terms of that volume of water that we have to treat and go through our system, which, is pond water, it's surface water, it doesn't need treating. It can just go into the environment. So yeah, we've had some good successes in terms of identifying some big wins, quick wins, of that nature. Other examples are where kind of agricultural farm fields or ditches are connected into the sewers when they shouldn't be. So again, we're unplugging those and taking them out of the foul system. So we have seen some good wins from that perspective as well in tackling these issues. Thank you for your question.
Yes, sorry. Staying with overflows for the minute, you said that you're going to spend £1 billion fixing the problems, and that you're going to reduce it by 17%. But I noticed you didn't actually say what the current situation is, so we can't really make a comparison. And that given, are you comfortable that you can actually do all of that by 2030?
Yeah, so thank you for your question. So we hold the data going back a number of years in terms of the storm overflows and the actual number of spills. As we said, we had full coverage from 2024, so that's probably the best year to baseline full company performance. But we do have the figures going back for where we did monitor back to 2020. So we have those baseline figures, so we can make those assessments of the numbers in terms of the funding. So yeah, there's a number of storm overflows and sewage works that are part of our business plan. They've been identified through investigation, and you'd expect us, and we have. We go to the areas that are the highest spillers first, the worst offenders, so to speak, and we prioritise that funding. So yeah, we have targeted those plans for this AMP, and we have every confidence that we'll achieve them. And that's part of our business plan. That's what we gear up to do. That's what we commit to do. So yeah, there's no reason not to think that we will deliver on those plans. And that's a range of different solutions. So some of them will be fitting a screen to the overflows to stop. Grant was talking about the unflushables and wet wipes and what we call RAG in Anglian water. So the screens will stop that getting to the environment. It's everything from storage tanks, additional storage, to those more nature-based solutions. And on treatment works, it's installing other additional treatment capacity as well. So there's a whole range of kind of solutions that we look at, and we do want to prioritize those nature-based solutions, SUDs and treatment wetlands as well, because we see there's additional environmental benefit that we get, creating habitat for birds and wetlands and things like that as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. How much of FDC's sewer system is worn out, and how is this actually affecting the problems that we're seeing?
I mean, it's a difficult one to answer. I mean, Anglian Water have got over 70,000 kilometres of sewers in our region. And as Gavin said, it's ageing infrastructure. Some of it's Victorian, and there's a big maintenance plan to repair and improve that network over time. Anglian Water has been a privatised industry for 30 years, and bills have been kept at a certain level as a private organisation to help customers, and so therefore there probably hasn't been the investment we would have liked in the decades preceding. That's changing. Bills are going up now because of the government's realised through the regulators are off that we do need to invest more. So in terms of Fenland, we would target the most the oldest sort of the ones that need repairing quicker, sooner. So we haven't got an actual figure for you, but obviously we will get round to as many as we can. I mean, the good example on the clean water side is the 1,000 kilometres of new water mains. That's a step change for Anglian Water, recognising that we need to now invest in clean water as infrastructure as much as wastewater. Historically, we've done a lot more on the clean water side over previous decades because we don't want to be a water company that can't provide water. That'd be ridiculous. But therefore, now we're catching up on investment on the wastewater side, but that doesn't mean to say we're not also renewing water mains, which we are, say, 1,000 kilometres in the next year. So it will be targeted where it's needed first. So that's the sort of an answer to the question. Yeah.
Chair, just in addition to that, if I may, we have our teams out on the ground responding to issues as we see them, and following up on where unfortunately we do have incidents. Then we follow up with investigation. We do root cause analysis. We have embarked on a big program of installing monitors in the sewer to tell us how our networks are performing. So that's been over the last couple of years. I believe the figure is now 50,000 monitors across the whole of the Anglian Water region. So these are devices that sit in the sewer and monitor in near real time the performance of our networks and the levels. And that's a really rich data source that helps us to manage our sewers and get on top and be proactive in terms of responding to issues, but it also gives an indication to sometimes where there are issues and allows us to target our more targeted interventions. So things like very detailed CCTV camera surveys of assets, and along with people going and lifting manholes and physical on the ground surveys as well. And that's very much how we then understand the condition of our assets, and then when we can then go and target intervention and remedial work, whether that's relaying a section of sewer, pipelining, misconnections, removing surface water, all those different interventions, we can then go and identify which is the best for each specific case. So yeah, we do hold of the issues that we're aware of in the sewers. Obviously we prioritize them and we fix them as we're able to, and we hold a risk register of ones that are kind of the next bunch of the list to go after. So we do have a kind of prioritized investment plan for those assets.
But on those dynamics, sort of monitors that Gavin
DSV,
mentioned.
dynamic sewer visualization.
So you've got more than 1,200 in Finland alone, which is quite a lot. And obviously, where we reckon there's more issues, challenges, we put more monitors in. So so we're the most monitored water company, I think, in the UK. But I think of last I heard, so prevention. So once those monitors tell us there's something that's not quite right, we can get out there and fix it before it goes wrong. In effect, and that's what we try and do.
Councillor Boone.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to pick up on the point about pollution because it was reported, I think, in the media quite extensively at the beginning of the year about the fact that you were using no-flow results to sort of pass the fact that you're saying that there was no pollution. So have you stopped that practice? I understand it was being sort of banned in the new water bill, but is that still ongoing or not? Because obviously that will skew the figures around what pollution there is if you're saying there's no pollution just because there's no flow at a particular time. And it did seem to be that it was a practice that it was almost targeted when there was no flow or outflow. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Grant wants to interject as well, but so the program that I was talking about in the media and in those media releases are the regular monitoring of our treatment works to monitor the quality of the treated effluent, the treated water that goes out. So it's not pollutions as such, it's just monitoring the treatment process. And, we have a variety of treatment works and a variety of different processes, and some of them work on a batch system. So they'll only operate for a certain period of time, and then they have kind of a rest for a certain period of time for the bacteria to do their work. So a lot of those instances where there was no flow is where the treatment works wasn't operating. It was in that resting phase of the batch process. So it was a function of the treatment process itself, which is why those samples were missed.
Yeah. But does that mean you've now stopped that practice? Because I believe it suggested it was going to be stopped in the new water bill.
No, I think as the process of treated sewage, you need that time. So I suppose what we need to make sure is that obviously the rest of the flows are monitored properly, and obviously the EA have access to our sites all the time. They come and monitor and inspect it.
Yeah.
But in terms of the biological process to activate properly, that it stops and starts, so it settles down. The bacteria do their work. I mean, we'd love to take you to a site and you can see this in practice. You're more than welcome as a committee. Come and see one of our we call them water recycling centres, to see that process and how that works, because there isn't a constant flow necessarily of final effluent into the river. It can stop and start, as Gavin said.
Yeah. The other thing to mention as well is, so those samples that are marked as missed are rescheduled and are taken at a different time. So we do get kind of we fulfill all our legal, duties that we're supposed to do, and all the samples do get taken. It's just they were missed on that first visit, which I think is the figures that are then presented to the media. So the samples are rescheduled and taken at a different time, but there's certainly no thought behind it, no malicious. It's a fact of how the treatment process operates.
Yeah. So if you know that there's going to be sort of no flow times, and why is it that you're using those times to do the monitoring? I guess I understand it can vary, but and you said that you will reschedule, but I mean, surely if you know your system that well, you can schedule it better.
So I think I think part of this comes down to the way the sampling system is operated and designed. So back in the day, a long time ago, obviously the Environment Agency used to take these samples. I think with privatisation, that duty was given to the water companies, called OSM, so operator self-monitoring. But that sampling programme is kind of kept under lock and key. It's very strict, very high secrecy around it, like nobody internally knows about it. That's set by the sampling team and them themselves. So no one else in the business knows the frequency, knows when the samplers are going to turn up, because it's supposed to, it is monitoring completely, like they can come at any time. You don't know when they're going to turn up. So you can't prepare for them, in that way. So it is completely
Arm's length.
That's it, arm's length, and it's completely anonymous in that way. We don't know when the samplers are going to turn up. So I think a function of that, having that ability is, sometimes they will come when the sewage system is in that resting phase. And it's important to say that, these are only a handful of works, so not all the works operators, so a lot of them do discharge continuously. When there's flow coming through, in the middle of the night when flows drop off, works don't discharge, or some of them don't discharge. But it's only a small number of the works that have the specific treatment process where we have these batch systems that way.
Councillor Boyce-Baird.
Thank you. Hiya. With regards to your Just Bin It campaign, may I ask, where are you advertising and how are you educating your customers on this? I know you mentioned social media, but I'm just interested to learn if you're using any other methods, any other routes.
Yeah, the example I gave at Castle Point in Essex, you can't get much more advertising than slapping a big poster on the side of a bin lorry, or dozens of bin lorries around Essex, which is a great partnership we've done with that council. So that's been really successful. We do lots of education outreach as well to schools and colleges about Just Bin It. We have got campaigns on radio, so in the media, on social media as well, and obviously through customer interaction directly through your My App if you've got an Anglian Water account. So we do that. We are seeing some benefits, but the more help and the more messaging we can get from other people, the better. So we've engaged with all of our MPs, all of our district councils and county councils through their comms teams as well to get support. Some have welcomed it, and others not. So we're open to any help and support we can get from you.
Yeah, I guess we also do in-person events as well, like in town centres and market squares and that kind of thing, and kind of drop-in sessions to raise awareness. Yeah. And we've been, through the campaign, we kind of use our data and use our information to target the hotspots and the worst areas. So that's been what's been informing our kind of specific targeted focus on different areas. I know Northampton, Peterborough, and in Essex, as Grant mentioned, there's certain hotspots where we see more blockages and unflushables coming through the system. So that's kind of where we have a hyper focus.
Oddly, not a million miles from here, but Soham is a hotspot for us for some reason. So we've had some interesting data there that we're targeting through the local authority. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. I'm really pleased that you mentioned about in-person conversations. We do have quite a high rate of digital exclusion in Finland. Yeah. So I do think it's important to have in-person and the schools as well. You mentioned about the schools, that's great. I was just wondering if there was any, have you done any in-person events in Finland recently? And if not, could we have some, please? Also, again, mentioned about the digital exclusion. Do you advertise through newsletters, leaflets, as opposed to not just the digital element and social media? And I know you mentioned the bin, which is fabulous.
Yeah. I'll feed back to our Just Bin It team, see whether we can do some in-person events in Finland. And yeah, you're right. We need to cover all channels. The low digital literacy in Finland is something we are aware of. So we do posters and toolkits as well. You can print stuff out. Councils can put stuff in newsletters. People do read monthly newsletters or paper adverts as well. So yeah, we would do all of that. I'll talk to the team. We'll get something set up for you. Yeah.
Councillor Hicks.
Yeah, I'll just pick up on a point you said earlier about most of the overflow water is rainwater. Most isn't all. What is the percentage of the other part, contaminated water, sewage water, all that sort of gets through the system? What is the figures on that, please?
So it's probably hard to give specific figures because each rainfall event is different, so there'll be a different amount of rainfall.
We've quoted like high 90% rainwater. The storm event. It's not science, but I think 95% of it is rainwater. It is very, very dilute.
Sort of related to that. So in our drinking water, how many contaminant parts per million are we drinking, and what is the national accepted average for us to drink safe water?
So you mentioned contaminated parts. Is it?
Yeah, what we're actually getting through the system, what we're actually ingesting. What?
So are you speaking about fecal matter?
Anything.
What kind of contaminants?
Yeah. Anything. Detergents, fecal matter, paint, spirits, everything that will wash out in the sink. What percentages are getting through the system, and what is the acceptable? Are we working within parameters, or how are you doing?
Yeah, so there won't be any like fecal matter in drinking water. That's treated to the highest standards. We do all sorts of tests on our drinking water to make sure that
So
all
what-
the contaminants, so different levels of contaminants are taken out.
Yeah.
I don't have all.
You can't get everything out, can you?
Our water is the cleanest water in Europe. In England.
What in East
Yep.
Anglia?
Yep. Yeah. And what you can put your postcode on a drinking water site on Anglian Water's website or the drinking water website inspectorate, and it tells you exactly the quality of your water there. So you can be rest assured that we take it very seriously, the drinking water quality in the UK. Yeah. Well, it's all public, so it's different. Different parts of the country have different figures, but it is absolutely safe to drink without that question.
Sorry, if I may come back on an earlier point you made around the storm overflows and the percentage between a lot of sewage works have storm tanks. So these are the storage tanks I was referring to. So they'll store the first flush of rainfall and first flush of contaminants that happen when a rainfall event occurs. Things like oils that are stored on roads and things like that if they get into the system. So that first flush after rainfall is stored on the sewage works, and then that's returned to treatment when the rainfall subsides. So I just wanted to add that detail around, in terms of those contaminants getting to the environment. That first flush is stored, that's what storm tanks are for, and then it's returned to treatment after the rainfall stops.
Thank you. My apologies to Councillor Voice-Beard. I think you had another question, didn't you? Yeah. Go ahead.
It's fine. It's just a light one. Going back to the Just Bin It campaign, I'm just curious. Do you have much communication with companies, manufacturers surrounding the flushing of poos and paper? For instance, there's quite a few flushable wipes, and they're advertised that they're flushable. So us consumers obviously do what we're told. So I'm just wondering if you guys have much communication with those to kind of make sure that you're both on the same message.
That's a really good point. So just because it says flushable on the packet doesn't mean it doesn't cause us issues, because flushable means it can just flush away from your toilet. What it doesn't do necessarily is break down quickly enough in the environment or in our sewers to not make a problem. So, which is why we call our campaign Just Bin It. The message is we don't want to ban wet wipes. They've got a very proper place in society, both for the young and the old, and obviously cleaning products as well. So we're not banning wet wipes. We want to ban plastic in wet wipes. The government have recently just passed a law to ban plastic in wet wipes, which is one step in the right direction. But ultimately, bending them is the best solution. If you just do not flush them at all. So we are working with the industry to try and look at the manufacturers and look at the labelling, because flushable does not mean it does cause us problems.
Councillor Booth?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just going back to the point about in-person events, a number of years ago, in partnership with the College of West Anglia, you held an open day, which I attended, and quite a few councillors and other organisations and partners attended. I mean, that was a good educational opportunity. I think it was pre-COVID. It must have been 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to do that again.
Absolutely. Yeah, we any opportunity we have to spread the word on this sort of stuff, we would take up. So I will feed that back. And we continue to work with the College of West Anglia as well. So that's a good partnership we've got in place there, particularly around the skills challenge we've got on as well. So that's really important.
Sorry, if you don't get all the funding you want from Ofwat, what projects in Finland will you perhaps need to push back or cancel?
We can't answer that at the moment because we don't know what the outcome will be. But as I said before, all of our funding is on a priority basis. So the schemes that have the most environmental or customer impact, obviously the ones that are prioritised. But ultimately, what's in our business plan, we will want to hopefully deliver in the 5 years, if possible. If not, it will obviously be remodelled or maybe taken forward to the next 5-year cycle. The 5-year cycle is a sort of a limit we've got on our current business model in the water industry. So it's done on a priority basis. So where there's a need, where the impacts are more felt, then we would prioritise that investment to those schemes first. So people who are having internal flooding, water pollution issues, or frequent burst mains, it's done on a risk register, as Gavin said. So the ones that are near the top would get attention first. But hopefully we're not going to see many, or if any, schemes pulled. But we'll work that out through the next 2 or 3 years. And say as those schemes come forward, we would let you know locally what we're doing and when we're delivering them.
Councillor Booth?
Just following up on that, I asked a question last year around the villages to south and west of Wisbech, where you had done some work because issues we were experiencing with the sort of flow rate, basically, of water. Although you'd done some in, I think it's Wisbech, St Mary, Parson Drove, I think it was identified there's quite a few other mains in that area that really did require replacement. I think the response was, you were going to be looking at your 5-year business plan. We're obviously a year further on. Are you saying you've still not got an idea if you're going to be doing some of those pipes? You've mentioned other areas in Finland, but I think
I've got a map here.
Yeah.
Well, I can't show it today, but we can sort of show it afterwards of where those pipes are going to be replaced in Finland.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's around 60,000 metres, I think, 61,896 metres of pipes being replaced, about £13 million of investment just on those water main replacements the next 5 or 4 years. We've got, and they're all over the place. I can share a map afterwards where they are. I mean, exactly when they'll be delivered in the next 3 or 4 years, but I'm not sure, but it's a lot. It's
Okay.
good, yeah.
Thank you. And I guess just on that, obviously you said about engaging with local councils and that. Please can you ensure you engage with parish councils as well?
We do.
Yeah. Because one of the other methods you might be able to get your message out there is the local like newsletters. So
Our capital delivery teams do engage with parishes, and then my team do the sort of the district councils and the county councils and the MPs, and then we have a customer team that do the letters to customers, so we do get it out there, press releases, all sorts of stuff. Okay, I appreciate the sharing that is important.
Okay.
Councillor Barber?
Thank you, Chair. If I might go on to the reservoir, the consultation on the reservoir, I'm wondering what sort of answers you've had to that, and if residents have raised concerns, what do you intend to do to change things?
Yeah, so as I said, the consultation remains open until the 10th of December, the current one. We have definitely listened, because I've been to all of these community group meetings, and I think we had the 4th or 5th or even the 6th one last week, and that the feedback we've had from previous consultations has been taken on board. So things like, a good example is construction material being brought to site when we get to that point. Can we use what we're going to use in terms of transport mechanisms? And rail was put forward way back as an option. So we are really looking at rail to bring some of the aggregates in to support the construction of the reservoir. That's sort of direct feedback from communities and people asking that question in previous consultations. So we do listen to those feedback. Also, the location of things like amenities around the reservoir. So there was a discussion about whether we have 1 or 2 visitor centres potentially for that reservoir, one in the north, one in the south. I think there was originally going to be 1, there's now going to be 2 based on customer feedback from the consultations. So it's really important that we do, that feedback is being fed directly into our project team, and they are making decisions based on that to redesign or amend the approach based on that feedback. Obviously, we can't do everything. Every sort of bit of feedback or every question or request we get from that consultation can't all be taken into account, but we do our best as we can to try and accommodate most of that. And it's that ongoing dialogue is important. So, as I say, consultation 3 finishes next week. Will there be a further consultation and the strategy consultation before the final version in the next few years? And that will be then the detailed design based on all of that information we gathered over the previous consultation. So it does help. So we appreciate that feedback we get from the community.
That's good to hear, thank you.
On the back of Councillor Barber's question there, and you've just spoken about the fact that some of the construction materials will be brought in, maybe, by rail. So we're probably talking in terms of Stony,
aggregates.
And Maney, a bit further out. What bothers me is the state of the roads around these places. So are you actually talking to Cambs County Highways in any way?
Yeah, we are.
Because some of these roads will have to be drastically improved.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so before we even start any work, we would work with the highways to do a highways survey. So we look at the condition of the roads before we even start anything. So the minimum we would do is put the roads back to what that minimum standard was at the start of it. But not making any promises, but you'd imagine there will be some improvements throughout the duration of the project to the network. We want people to be able to visit the site safely in the future. So yes, we are actually working with Cambridgeshire Highways to look into that, make sure that what we are proposing isn't going to sort of make it an isolated location. It needs to be accessible for people beyond just the villages around it, but further afield as well.
How can you? Lots of the environment is going to be damaged, obviously, during the course of this construction. Or what assurances can you give us that you won't, when you talk about improving the environment, that you're not just going to actually put it back to what it was, because it needs to be made better as well.
So biodiversity, again, is very, very much a feature of the reservoir. So we have to improve the environment that we are affecting. It's a statutory part of the DCO process that we have to ensure the environment is left in a better position than when we arrive, before we arrive. So that BNG approach will be applied across the region. Obviously, we're building things like wetlands and visitors amenity systems and public access points, but also protecting the environment. If you look at the reservoir designs on the website now, so the eastern side is about amenity and education and visitors and fun and games, whatever. The west side, the opposite around. The west side is for that. The east side is more nature. So we're looking at wetlands and walks and bird watching and that sort of thing. So we are accommodating both, but we have to through the DCO process is ensure that the environment is enhanced through this endeavour and not harmed. Yeah.
Councillor Boyce-Baird.
Thank you. Hopefully, local contractors will be used, but just in case they're not, or you need more, where will the contractors be working on the reservoir be housed? And is there any indication of numbers and how this will increase in population? This increase in population will impact local services such as doctors' surgeries and hospitals?
That's a really good question. So on the supply chain point, you're absolutely right. We would love to be able to sort of have a local supply chain. In fact, we had an event last year or earlier this year through the Cambridgeshire Chambers of Commerce, where we invited people, local suppliers, to come and have a first sort of look at what the proposals might be for the reservoir in the future. So we are definitely looking to engage through the Chambers local supply chains to help us when we get into the construction and design and delivery phase. In terms of housing workers, that's something we're trying to work out. We don't know the numbers for sure yet. Obviously, a lot of the stuff we do can be automated and brought in and pre-manufactured, but certainly there will be obviously an influx of workers on the site to deliver the site. So whether that's going to be temporary accommodation put on the actual construction site, like some of these big road schemes you see, or we'll be looking at hotels and other places further afield and finding the best and safest way to bring those people in. I mean, we had some examples of, I went to a similar meeting at the Lincolnshire Reservoir, and people were asking about, can people have buses to bring people to site rather than every person in the van in a singular van. So things like that will be worked through when we get the detail of what we need. But yeah, we appreciate that we need to look at what impact that would have on local services, and you're quite right. So that's factored into the construction design phase. Yeah.
Can I just come in quickly? And will you, I guess, stay in regular communication with organisations and work with local authorities as you get the information, the data?
Absolutely, yeah. So the community liaison group, which is attended by members of this council, and also local community groups. We have education people, we have scout groups, we have all sorts of farmers, landowners. So that will continue throughout the duration of the project. And obviously the project team will have masses of engagement going on. You'll see posters, campaigns, information drop-in sessions. Absolutely, we'll be continuing that conversation to make sure that information is shared. Yeah.
One of the or statements that are often made to me is this is going to cost me on my council tax. Basically, is it going to affect Fendon? Are we going to pay the bill for London getting its water, which is what everybody keeps saying? And also, how do we carry on protecting people who are struggling to pay now, basically?
Yeah, I mean, well, just to put your mind at rest, so that this water isn't for London, it's for Cambridgeshire and beyond. So it's a reservoir that's been delivered by Anglian Water and Cambridge Water. So it is for all of us. And actually, all of us are going to pay for it. So it's not just Fenland residents are paying for the reservoir, it's all of Anglian Water's customers are paying for the reservoir eventually over the life cycle of that reservoir, which is decades or hundreds of years, been built in the bills in the future. So the money's been put up front by our shareholders to build it, and then that money's paid back in effect over the years and years and years through bill increases. So all of us are paying for it, in spite of, even though it's only affecting but improving the water supply for this part of the region. Your other point about support, absolutely acknowledge that there is still a cost of living crisis, and Anglian Water have got a part to play in providing debt relief and support for those customers that can't afford to pay bills. Our website's full of support and help. Also through the benefit system, a lot of our contact agents in our call centre are trained to actually help customers claim benefits beyond what they can get through water companies. Some amazing statistics we found where people were unaware of other benefits they were entitled to because they're ringing Anglian Water for help. Our agents are able to point them directly through the DWP or wherever to get some extra assistance. So yeah, we do recognise we've got a good package of support for people that genuinely have struggled with bills, and that's something we're very mindful of in the current climate. So.
Yeah, if I may come in, I think the simple message, if anyone's struggling to pay their bill, ring in and talk to someone in the contact centre. That's the best thing they can do, and then we can see how we can help.
Could you, is this something that you could deal with? I think more in the rural areas probably, where we can get something out in newsletters and things to say, just something drafted by yourselves to say that, if you are having difficulties, here's the number, because not everyone is on Facebook or wherever.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Not to preempt it, but obviously in February there'll be sort of the annual bill rises that come from April onwards. So we have a big campaign around that time of the year to sort of educate people exactly what Gavin said, where to ring us, contact us, or where to get help. So we can definitely make sure you get copied in all of that after Christmas. Yeah.
That's okay.
You thought about, are you going to put flyers in with the bills there? That'll kill two birds with one stone.
We do that as well. Yeah, we do that as well. Yeah.
Do you have any? So Barbara.
Sorry, this isn't to do with the presentation, but as you're here, I'd like to ask, what is the latest update on the Barton Road problems? We were told we would get regular updates. This doesn't seem to be happening. Perhaps you could answer.
I think there's on the web. So if you look to the website, there's a website specifically about Barton Road in Wisbech, and so every week the team put a little video up about what's going on and what's happened. But yeah, so there is progress is being made. I'm trying to find my notes, but there is. So the regular updates on that website explain exactly what's happened and what. So basically says what we've done this week, what we're doing next week, and then we share things through other channels, through the MP or through Steve Barclay or through the councillors, local councillors as well. So it is being kept up to date. Hopefully, if not, then I'll have a look. But I'm told it should be. But yeah, I can find the right bit of paper.
I was hoping that councillors would get updates by email. That's not going to happen then.
Well, yeah, obviously we're there until March, so I'm not sure sending an email out every week or ever will be useful, but we are updating that website, so we're encouraging people to self-serve. You can go on there and have a look, but obviously any big points of interest or milestones, the project team would look to update councillors as well to explain what we've achieved when. But I can certainly talk to the team about whether we can set up some sort of more regular, proactive contact to members. I can do that.
Okay, and is the expected finish date still March 26th?
It is still March 26th, yeah.
Right. I don't think anybody else has got any more questions, have they? No? Okay, so as there are no further speakers, thank you very much for coming along today, and thank you for answering the questions, and apologies for the fact that you didn't get them until quite late, but a technical glitch. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
inviting
Thank you
us.
very
Thanks very
much.
much.
Agenda item 6 is an update on the annual statistics in relation to the Local Government and Health and Social Care Ombudsman, LGO, and the Council's Corporate 3Cs procedure. Would you like to come and see this, Steve? Thank you. Are you going to do a little presentation, or how do you want to handle this?
I'm quite happy for you to go straight into questions, Chairman, unless you want me to. It seems pointless to talk. You've got the report, I think.
I can,
Councillor Woolard.
I'll kick the ball rolling, so they say. Yeah, just a very small question, really, regarding a clarification on the complaint figures on the refuge and recycling collections. You give us a very comprehensive breakdown of the 50 complaints received, but there's a very large percentage, though, 12 of the 50, all lumped under other. Could you just try and give us an indication what sort of things fit into that category, please?
Yeah, of course. So people are very creative when they have complaints, and quite often, even though we try to come up with a lot of different categories, they'll think of one that doesn't quite fit anywhere. So that's what goes in the other. And one of the most common things will tend to be complaints that have a relation to staff. That gets handled differently because we don't want to name individual staff, because that would be inappropriate. And so if there's a staff complaint, it kind of goes into the other and gets handled separately. And that is, I think, most of, not all, but most of the complaints. So, do you want anything to add to that? Or?
Thank you. Yeah, it was just there was so many of them, or a relatively large number, suddenly lumped together under some obscure title. But thanks for that clarification.
I noted that there were 27 complaints in planning development, and I wanted to ask what specific improvement process is being considered to reduce the dissatisfaction around the decisions. And I also noted that 5 related to a single application, and what, if any, procedural lessons have been identified from that particular case. And on, I'll tag it on, because I know you can deal with more than one question at a time. So, on staffing, there were 17 related complaints, but it isn't clear whether that's like a cluster in one area or whether it's sort of spread across.
Thank you for the question. So it's interesting, isn't it, with planning, because the nature of planning is that whenever you've got a planning decision, one group of people are going to be happy with it and another group are not going to be happy with it. And one of the common things people complain about is that they're not happy with the decision. But that's not in our remit. You know, the planning committee are perfectly able to take a decision and, for instance, not go with what officers recommend, or do something that is going to upset people. And then sometimes, quite fairly, people will be upset about that and they'll make a complaint. But actually, there's nothing we can do, because that's the nature of planning. Sometimes people are going to be upset with decisions that are taken. Now, I'm sure that the planning department, and certainly the complaints officers, look at every complaint closely and see if there's something procedurally that's wrong, and then handle that the proper way. But I'm not sure that we specifically need a plan to improve it, because I think this is, at least in part, the nature of planning decisions. In regards to staff, Just remind me what you asked about that, because you were wrong. I couldn't think of two questions.
What I said was there were 17 related complaints, but it wasn't clear if that was a cluster in particular teams or whether we need a bit more targeted intervention.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen any actual pattern developing in the complaints over the last year. We look for that, of course, because if there's a pattern developing, then that means it's not just usual business. We might have something going wrong, but we haven't seen a specific pattern or cluster, except sometimes, like the planning one you said about, where 5 people said they were unhappy with the same decision, but that was the decision. Thank you.
There's also, it says there's 3.11% increase in complaints with a reduction in compliments. But further down, it points out that in that report, it points out that this is not down to any particular trend. So I don't know whether there's been more complaints in some areas, certainly refuse and recycling, obviously, and is that related to anything to do with the increase in the charges?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you give me the opportunity to talk about this, because what you've got to bear in mind, I think, is the context and the numbers we're talking about. Now, I don't want to trivialise anybody's complaint, because we take every complaint seriously. But you have to understand that that 3% is 6 complaints. 6 complaints is the number we're talking about. So an increase from, I forget the exact numbers, 190 to 196 or something. It's over a whole year, and every department, a total of 1 complaint every other month is the added number. And the previous year, I think we were 3 complaints down. But what this really shows is it's much the same as last year. There's no statistical difference that I would be concerned about. Again, I stress we look at every complaint and take everyone seriously. But the numbers don't worry me, because this is kind of normal business. I would say 6 complaints is just nothing over every department of the council. And we haven't seen any trends, not that you would see many with 6 complaints to look at, if you see what I mean. So I don't feel it's something to be hugely concerned about. I think we have quite a good record of responding to complaints. And that the number of compliments being down by an even less amount, what's that going to be, 2 or 3 complaints? I haven't done the figures, but it's a tiny number. So what this broadly shows me is we're still doing quite well as we did last year, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't take every complaint seriously.
To do with, people, do they feel inclined to make complaints because they're paying a bit more money?
Well, I don't think the numbers stack up, because we've actually had a reduction in complaints in that particular department. So if we'd had a big number of extra complaints, maybe that would be. But I would stress once again that, for instance, the bin collections that we charge for, we're actually the lowest in the region, and we work quite hard to make that the case, so that nobody's going to want to pay a little bit more, but we are the less little bit more of the region, if you see what I'm saying, and that's deliberate. We're trying to provide good value for money, and the complaints don't seem to reflect unhappiness with that.
Don't all quote Rachel and say we've all got to do our little bit. So as far as the complaints process, next, it's going to move to a 2-stage system next year. So how will this relate to efficiency, and how will it improve customer experience?
Well, our staff seem to be embracing it. So this is what the Ombudsman recommends, and what a lot of other councils do, and it's kind of best practice. We had a traditional 3-stage system, as you know, which was really an officer looks at it quickly, gives a response if it's obvious. If they're not unhappy with that, it gets escalated to a more senior officer, and then finally to head of service. So that's the 3 steps. But the recommended method, which we're moving to next year, is just 2. But the first stage will take a lot more time. Rather than just have a cursory look before it moves on, we're going to have a much closer look and try and get it right at that stage. And then if they're really unhappy with it, then it goes straight to the senior officer. So it's not massively different, except it is a bit quicker. So I think we shaved 10 days off the response, which goes from 50 to 40. So I think people will be happier with it. You don't have to sit through lots of bureaucracy to get to the point you want to get to. I'd say it's an improvement, and I think officers seem to be pleased with it. So I hope it will go very well.
No, I mean, it sounds good to me because if if you're making a complaint, then really you want it dealt with as quickly as possible, and you'd like to think that there are people there actually bothering to look at your complaint thoroughly. So yeah, no, good, thank you. Councillor Booth.
If I could just come in on this, I mean, having worked in financial services, they operate a two-stage complaint process. I think there's an argument to say a three-stage complaint process actually puts unnecessary barriers in the place of customers because it sort of frustrates them that they've got to go through so many extra steps. So I think a two-stage process should be welcomed, and it'll be hopefully a better streamlined process and deal with complaints in a more reactive way.
Thank you for that, Councillor Booth. I think you're right. But I would stress the three-stage one was put in place with good intentions, in that you make sure that it's really looked at closely through every level. But sometimes good intentions don't work out in practice, and I think this is an improvement. You're right. Thank you.
I think you're getting off light. Oh.
Sorry, just one other observation. I mean, we talked about the planning committee complaints. There have been a number of appeals that have gone against the planning committee. Are those considered, I guess, as part of the more sort of higher level analysis on the process? Because I think I can recall at least two being reported recently where appeals have gone against the fact that the planning committee haven't necessarily come up with full reasons why, and that's why the inspector has basically said, he's granted the appeal, as it were. So just wondering how that factors into the root cause analysis.
Thank you. So that's kind of outside of my portfolio. That really falls into the planning portfolio. It's not a complaint if this is, but I will comment on it, which is, I'll say, the job of the planning committee is to do their best to look at the situation and listen to all the advice they're given, and then to come up with what they think is the right solution. And sometimes it won't be agreed when it gets to an appeal. But I think that is still a valid democratic process, that the way it should be handled, because we shouldn't be afraid to make a decision because an appeal might go against us and cost us some money. It's more important for the committee to come to the right decision in their minds based on the evidence as they see it. So I don't have a problem with that, although we obviously have to worry about the costs, but that is not my department, thankfully.
I mean, just an observation, I recall presenting on an application and some of the committee members at the time saying, we can't approve this, or we've got to approve it because it'd be, dropped, or we'd lose it at appeal. So I think that does come into it. But I guess what I'm saying is, it's more the fact I think that's been highlighted is the appeals that we've lost, and it's with costs. They were saying that we didn't have strong enough reasons for refusing the applications. So what I'm saying is, does that need to factor into our high level analysis of what's happening, and is this a suggestion maybe that some additional training might be required on how councillors at committee can put forward like stronger cases if they're going to refuse an application?
We did have apologies from Councillor Laws today. She's not very well. I think we perhaps deal with this. We can ask her to actually comment, because I think it's probably not right to put Steve in the position of having to answer that, unless he wants to.
The only thing I'll say is I know that it is considered. I know that the leader and Councillor Laws consider this and are looking at ways to strengthen the situation in the future. But again, it's not my portfolio, so I'd be uncomfortable speaking on it.
Councillor Booth.
I recognise it's not Councillor Tierney's portfolio, but I'm just thinking about the wider picture here and how we can make improvements. That's all I'm just thinking about. And it's just the fact that we've had these complaints about application decisions, it just brings it to the fore, I think.
Yeah, I think that if Member Services know, we will go to Councillor Laws for her comments. Thank you. Councillor Barber.
Can I just say, the job of overview and scrutiny, as I see it, is to actually scrutinise what's happening. And we see the bad things. Sometimes we don't always see the good things. And I have to say, 219 compliments, when you consider that most people find it easier to complain than to compliment, I think that's quite a good result.
I agree. Questions? Thank Agenda item 7 is an update on the Council's corporate priority in relation to communities. Can I ask the relevant portfolio holders to take a seat? Dan? Are you all comfortable? Is someone going to take the lead and do a small presentation, or do you want to go straight to questions? How do you want to handle it? Sam?
I would like to make a very small presentation that I've just decided to make, just right now on the spot, because I think we don't really ever do that. And I think there's actually, looking at the questions that you've submitted, there wasn't really very many questions for me, and not that I like particularly in the sound of my own voice, but I think we do need to recognise that homelessness counts for an exceptionally large amount of the budget and the core spend of Finland, and it is being one of our statutory responsibilities. And so I do think that it would have been nice to have seen some questions. Now, I don't mean that as a criticism, because I think it is such a big area, and sometimes there aren't questions because you think that it's going well, and actually I think it is going quite well, but there's a few things I wanted to highlight really. So I think that this is obviously a pressing problem, as we know. There is going to be homelessness everywhere, and I have to say I think Finland do particularly well. I was in Peterborough the other day, and there are so many rough sleepers in the city centre. Now, I know you can't necessarily compare us to a city, but you know, I do think we have made a lot of progress in housing people. So obviously there's a lot to think about. Obviously we have our bed and breakfast spend, which is kind of accounting for a large amount of our budget, which we have, Chris is constantly on my case about reducing, but obviously because it does affect the overall budget, and it's going to we don't want it to significantly impact on council tax. And so Dan and the team have been working really hard on that and to reduce that and get that down. And they've done a number of things they're doing, working with partners where we pay sort of premiums that we don't need to pay and things like that. So there's a lot of work going on there. Also, Sarah and her team have just got on and doing the Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance. So obviously that's supporting people that do experience domestic abuse. So there's loads of stuff happening in the team. I did see one question about risks that was mentioned, and there are a few risks, I think, that we do need to highlight. So I think that one big risk, I think, is going to be the renters reform and actually the budget. So I don't want to make it everything too political, but I do think that the budget and the effects of it recently are going to have a massive impact on jobs. And we do see when people lose their jobs, obviously homelessness is one of the first things that is impacted. I think there's a statistic like everyone's 2 months paycheck away from homelessness, and that is quite a perhaps true but scary thought. A lot of people don't have kind of any savings or maybe friends and family to fall back on. So I personally am very concerned about what potential impact that is going to have. I also think we have to consider the risks around the Renters Reform Bill. I know it's kind of popular at the moment to bash landlords, but they do provide housing and people do need somewhere to live. So that is something that I don't think that many governments actually ever really consider and think through. In terms of housing supply, that is a really massively delicate balance because, of course, we do need affordable housing for people, but we also don't want to have kind of areas where everyone kind of feels like they're living together and they're sort of, I hate to use the word slum because that's such a horrible pejorative term, but we've all seen, haven't we, some areas where you perhaps put a massive amount of 300 people and they don't feel like they're actually living together as a community. It sort of feels like they've just been dumped somewhere, and that isn't the right way. So we do need to build community so they look nice, and everyone feels like they're part of that community. And I think the final risk we have got is obviously with migration and the asylum seekers. Dan has done, no one knows how much work you do down behind the scenes, like so much work on
constantly firefighting and making sure our door is being kept closed from the Home Office. I don't know how long Dan will be, he's like fighting at that door to keep it closed. I don't know how long he'll manage it. And if he doesn't, it's not through anything he's done, it's through just, you know, the government being stronger than us. But at the moment, we've continued to stave off that kind of threat, and hopefully we'll continue, but we don't know how long that will last and what impacts that will have on the community. So those are all the risks. So I don't want to create too much of a negative picture, because I know that might have sounded like a bit of a very depressing picture, but obviously there are an awful lot of positives that actually we are doing very well when we have got a lot of complex needs, elderly population, high levels of poverty, lots of those things, and we're still managing very well. So sorry to speak so much, but hopefully that's covered my bit.
No, thanks for that, Sam. I think it was one of my questions. I think I said what risks have been identified around the transition to the Crisis Resilient Fund, and how well are we going to be able to meet local needs?
I just think, honestly, I don't know the answer to that, because I just think you don't know what problems are coming. You can, like, I've speculated as much as I can think about what some of those problems might be, but there are lots of things that come that you don't necessarily expect, or that don't play out in various ways. You know, you might think something's going to be a massive problem, and actually we deal with it okay, and it actually it's not actually a big issue. And then other things that you think, oh yeah, this is fine, we can deal with this. This is a simple thing, it kind of explodes, and you think, wow, where did that come from? So I do think we have to manage things as they come, and I think that's why it's really good that there is that kind of communication, and people do know what's going on, and members and officers kind of do work well together to communicate, right, this problem is coming down the line, and what can we do about it, what works are we doing, and also speaking with partners. So, you know, people like the Ferry and Wiz Beach, we work really well with them, so they're kind of highlighting problems to us to say, look, this is coming down the road, what can we do about it? And so we're all kind of talking and just keeping those channels open, really.
Oh, sorry, could you hear me? Yeah. Sorry?
Time's off.
No, what I said was I just wondered how we dealt with individuals that I think they refer in the report to lost to contact, and how do we know that they're safely accommodated?
So I suppose we don't completely know. It's very difficult to know if you lose touch with someone. Maybe they leave the district. It's very difficult, but obviously we do try with the outreach. So we do have our outreach workers that can go out and see people. And obviously we rely on, I think, because one great thing about Finland is we actually have got a number of very visual out there staff. So if people are collecting refuse or street sweeping and things like that, they can see. So we're obviously asking them to feed in and report. So they do see someone sleeping rough or things like that, then we are identifying people, and then that can feed into the team, and then they can seek about sending outreach to go and identify them, see if they are known to us, or if it is a new person, to get them help. And it's about going back as well, because often people can be quite transient. So if you hear you've got an encampment in X place, you know, you can go there and the next day and it's not there. So they will keep trying it and trying to locate people and find where they can. And also we try and encourage, obviously, our partner agencies to do the same, and ask people to kind of refer and turn up there. And I think that's why it's really important. One message I kind of want to get out to people is there's quite a lot of these kind of charities and things popping up that say they want to help people, and I'm sure they've got absolutely wonderful, great intentions. However, please make sure you actually are referring people that come into you for actual help, because it's all well and good giving someone a sleeping bag and a piece of cake, but actually we really need to get them help. And some of these people, it takes years to deal with and get them actually finally accepting help and through the system. So as soon as we can get that started, the better.
Because there are some people who just don't want to be helped, aren't there? Within Finland, we know that there are several cases, they've been out there a long time and they really don't want help. They don't want to live, they don't want accommodation. They want to live like they're living.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing we have to, I think it's difficult to recognise as well, because there's a fine line, isn't there? Because there's a line between actually someone has a fundamental human right to live, as long as they're not affecting other people's human rights, but live how they like. So if they want to live rough, that is their human right, however, as long as it's not impacting anyone. However, there's a balance of how much of that anger and resistance is because of past trauma and history. So, it's that balance, isn't it? And there's also that balance, I suppose, which is more of a controversial thing as to how much help can you give someone, because yes, people do have absolutely complex pasts and they need an awful lot of help. But at the same time, how much and how long do you spend on an individual before you think, come on, you've got to start engaging a little bit. You've got to start giving a little bit back. It has to be a two-way process. And of course, there is often going to be more from our side, but people do need to give a little bit back as well.
Thank you. Councillor Voice-Baird.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Hoy, for your change of heart for that presentation. That was really useful. I have had a read and noticed that you've put together, or there's a leaflet being put together to give out to homeless people. Do you have a date? Is there a date that will be launched? And will there be accessed? Be able to be accessed digitally as a link as well, and will it be in different languages to help with, I guess, preventative measures and whatnots? Do you want me to read the?
No, that's fine.
Oh,
that's
good,
fine. So yeah, it will be digital and in other languages, but I'm not sure about the date. So Dan will know more about the date than I do, because I'm not sure on the exact date. I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
I might give the wrong answer too, but I think it's out and about, just being rolled out now, so you'll see it being rolled out for 1 week. Great peaceful.
Lovely, and again, it's great that you've got such strong partnerships with the organisations and charities that are out there. As you said, it's really, really important. So, thank you.
Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Chair. We see it's good that BNB figures have improved. What factors have driven that reduction, and is the progress sustainable, please?
So I'll start with the last part first. I hope it's sustainable, but again, it's a bit like I said at the beginning, the risks are the risks. So it's a little bit like, I suppose, with social care. There's those pressures that you don't see, because if someone becomes homeless, we have a legal duty to house them, and if we don't have the accommodation, they have to go in B&B. So, all those factors like the renters reform and all of that could potentially lead us to have a very large increase. However, obviously we are trying to put the mitigations in place. So what led to, I suppose, a reduction is a number of things. So I think obviously the leader was kind of pushing it from a finance angle, which is obviously the right thing to do, and actually was really good, because it did make, I was thinking of it perhaps in the more human side, which is important, but obviously there are financial realities, and if we don't manage the budget, council taxpayers are having to pay. And whilst it's all in a good saying, yeah, you have to pay for a statutory service, these are, everyone else is on the breadline, and we don't want to put someone else, potentially homeless from not being able to afford their council tax to sort of help others. So, that is a difficult balance. So, obviously we looked into what we could do. Cabinet made a decision to spend £1 million on buying some flats. So we've bought 10 flats across the world. I think 9 we've bought across the district. We haven't yet finished on the 10th. So that provides a place for people to live. So the issue we have is, if Fenland District Council or a registered provider such as Clarion house the person that's homeless, that we get the full amount of housing benefit subsidy from the government. Whereas if it's someone that isn't a registered provider, so perhaps a charity that isn't a registered provider, or a bed and breakfast, for example, we don't get the full rate back. So it is a direct cost to the authority. So that's why with the flats we would get the full money back, because Fenland District Council would be the legal owners of them. also with some of the charities where we place homeless people, we are really kind of holding their feet to the fire and saying, you need to get registered as a registered provider ASAP. Now, we can't be going off making threats and saying, if you don't, we're going to pull out, because we need those services. We have to make that really difficult decision, but also they understand you need to get on with this quickly because this is costing us, hundreds of thousands of pounds, so we need to get a move on. And they are understanding that, and Dan has done so much work behind the scenes of, having those meetings, where are you, what's happening with that, and getting those answers. And so we're almost in a place where we're going to have things signed and be able to get the subsidy back from those. So it's been a combination of different factors, really. And also the team as well, they're making on getting claims processed faster, because once you've got someone in the B&B, it's getting their claim processed, moving them on, getting a decision made, and making sure that's happening within good time as well. Because if families are in bed and breakfast for too long, obviously the government aren't very happy about that. So there's various targets that we have to make sure we meet, and they're all aware of that, and they're all aware of those pressures that they have to keep working towards.
So can I just ask, the move-on flats that we've bought, is that then their permanent accommodation?
No, it won't be their permanent accommodation. So they'll go onto the housing register. Like everyone else is, their banding will be assessed, and then they'll be in there so they'll be in there until they're moved on to their permanent housing. So obviously it's not an ideal situation because they're still not in a permanent house, but it's better than leaving them in a B&B, because the decision length of time potentially could be the same, but obviously it's less of a cost to us.
Councillor Beard?
Just want to clarify, page 35, it talks about 61 properties being available to us. It says there's 33 units by the District Council and a 7-unit hostel. So is that hostel not owned by the District Council? We just have use of it. Is that correct?
It is owned by us. Yeah,
Okay.
I just think it's just maybe the wording of it.
Yeah,
but it is
it's just a
owned by
bit
us.
misleading because actually we've got 40 units and...
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, okay. But that kind of brings me on to my next question is so it sounds like this investment of £1 million has been a great success. Is there opportunity to go further down that route? Would that bring even more savings to the council? Would it help even more with the situation with regards to homelessness?
Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities. I mean, we had the government local authority housing fund as well. They allowed us to purchase properties, and we've used that, and that's been very successful. So I think there's definitely more opportunities. I think the only small caveats to the opportunities which we need to consider is, first of all, councils are notoriously slower and less cost effective in terms of maintenance than a private individual would buy. So we do have to make sure we are careful about that. Obviously, we've just bought a property that's going to come on stream very shortly, and that should provide quite a few more units as well. And the other risk factor to consider is we aren't really making any new property. So say we buy 20 flats, that's 20 less flats someone either owns or rents privately. Do you see what I mean? So if we're looking at net stock, we haven't actually made any change to the overall actual stock. It's just we've just kind of moved around who owns it. So we might have helped our finances, but we haven't helped the overall house picture, if that makes sense.
Except we're getting about 500 units each year in Finland, aren't we, through planning applications, roughly. So the situation is improving, but just very slowly.
Well, I suppose, but I mean, we keep being told there's a housing crisis and there's a housing shortage nationwide, and population obviously does increase every year. Obviously, it hasn't increased as fast over the last few years in terms of birth rates, but we have had quite a lot of immigration into the country, and people do have to live somewhere. So it's all well and good saying, well, we are having quite a lot of migration, but we have to accept that it has a consequence of people needing somewhere to live. And if you aren't building houses for people to live, that's going to be a problem.
Sorry. Are we faring any better with affordable homes coming online as well?
Yes, we have got an improved pipeline from working with housing associations who want to work in a patch. We try and encourage them. We have regular meetings to encouraged them to come in and want to work in Finland. So I can get you some figures. I haven't got the figures to hand in terms of specifically here, but I can, in terms of it's improved from particularly last year, this year, and the programme moving forward. We've got a significant programme of new affordable homes.
Yeah, because I know we've got, I think it's about 60 coming online in Wimbledon over the course of the time, and it's quite important really to try and retain people, not younger people, in village areas. Otherwise, what you find is the actual village dies. So, and obviously, if you could then move some people into that sort of lifestyle, and then you'd have other accommodation for like homeless people. We're creating more family homes.
Yeah, we try and do a mixture across in terms of actually from some discussions with the leader and Councillor Hoy, they asked if we could start to look at trying to negotiate with the RPs more single person accommodation, because I think one of our biggest pressures in bed and breakfast at the minute is single people, and we're trying to do that, but also alongside that, what's happening in Wimbledon at the minute through the parish council is an exception site. So the small exception site in that village will be ring fenced to people who've got a connection with Wimbledon Parish Council for the properties in that village, and we encourage that across the patch. There's a scheme in Parson Drove that's been established now for many years, and also we've got another proposal that's recently gone through the planning system in Guy Hearn.
Councillor Booth?
Well, Dan's pretty much said what I was going to say about rural exception sites, because I think that's what you were really getting at. Although it should be noted that if there's not enough local people want it, it does go to the general housing population. But yeah, the site in Parson Drove must be getting on for 10 years now, I think, Dan, isn't it? That's people have moved in there and they've been settled. There's been very low movement in those houses. So, but it does mean that actually we probably need more houses to allow people with a local connection to stay in the area.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we encourage with the parish councils we work with as well, is to constantly remind their community that if you want to be, because a lot of people sometimes have got a housing need but don't register on what we call HomeLink, the council's housing register, because they don't think they've got any chance of ever getting an affordable home to meet their needs. But because they're let in a very different way, they do have a chance with regards to those properties. But it does need a constant reminder to get registered so that you can apply once those properties come vacant. Although, as Councillor Booth said, they generally don't come free very often in terms of relets.
Councillor
Hoy? Thanks. Just one thing I wanted to add on affordable housing. I know we talk about that quite a lot, but one thing I think I'm quite keen for us to focus on really is actually looking at why people aren't. So Fenland is, and I think Fenland is quite an affordable area when you consider us in places such as South Cambs. To buy a house in Fenland, you are having to pay an awful lot less, or perhaps a third less than you'd be paying in other districts. Now, yes, admittedly, the wages are lower, but why is it that young people cannot afford to buy a house? Why is that? And interest rates, things like that, there are lots of things to consider. And I think while we just keep saying we're going to just keep building affordable housing, we aren't necessarily solving a problem now. It's perhaps too big a problem for us to solve as a district council, but it is a real problem that people aren't able to buy a house now. And there is nothing, I think, home ownership is, I don't own my own home, so I'm not sort of casting any shame on people that don't own their own home, but home ownership is such an important thing that we seem to have forgotten, and everyone wants to move to this European style of renting and almost forcing people to do that because they can't necessarily afford to buy. And I just think it's a real shame, and I don't know what the answer to that are. I don't know if there are any sort of easy answers, but I just think it's something that we need to consider rather than just thinking, well, this is the problem, let's just build some affordable housing, because I don't think just building affordable housing will help. Especially there's been a lot of these schemes that the government did, the Help to Buy scheme. I know 2 or 3 young people that bought under those schemes and are now really struggling to try and move up to a different house, because when you try and resell, you have to find 50, 60, 70,000 pounds just to pay on the interest or the gap in the buy and sell value. So people are really struggling, and I don't know the answer to it, but I do think that's something that we do need to think about, because it is, you know, it's a real problem, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon.
No, I tend to agree with you, and I think the problem is that young couples have to find such a hefty deposit before they even think about doing anything else. And then obviously, if you have had to put that sort of money into it, so you've got no savings, because you've plumped everything into it, and then you've still got to pay all the bills that are associated with it, and we all know that they're going up every day. So I feel really, really sorry for young people today, because we thought we had it hard, but boy, it doesn't compare. So,
I see 104 homes have been investigated. I just wondered, is it just the tenants who can ask for a home to be investigated, or can a member of the public do that? And would they be taken any notice of?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, basically, reports come from all kinds of different sources in there, so anybody can actually report a problem in there. So it could be tenants. Sometimes members get contacted by tenants as well to put in complaints or to raise concerns. The police, fire service, trading standards bring matters to our attention as well in there. I think also one of the things that we've got written in there as well, the housing enforcement policy that's on the website explains the whole process behind it as well for people. And I think one of the other questions that we had in there was around the fines and recovery of the debts as well, and the recovery of the fines in there. So we do have powers for legislation that we can utilise to cover those fines. But if a landlord or an agent demonstrates that they can't pay, then there are different payment plans that can be put in place. One of the other questions that was asked about was writing off debts as well. We do that by exception when all other avenues have been exhausted in there, really. And it could be examples of where a business has gone completely bust and there's nothing to actually chase, or if somebody's moved abroad is another example as well, so we can't actually chase after them. But to answer your main question, yes, anybody can report those problems. I think some of our agencies as well, we get comments made by tenants that get fed into the council as well.
Just on a different topic, and one that's close to everybody's heart, I suppose, and that is antisocial behaviour. Are you able to give us, there's been various interventions, particularly with the CCTV, policing, etc., any specific outcomes, particularly affecting March in particular, or anywhere else in Finland, but any specific outcomes that have been achieved by these interventions?
So I guess the latest one that we can give you would be through the CSP. We gave funding to some youth groups in Finland, especially in March. I can send you through the details of that. I think we did send it through actually when we first started delivering it, and it's now hit the year, and we've now got the funding for the next year, which is a very positive thing. But the interventions were very much around, when the minute you say knife crime, everyone kind of panics, but because there wasn't any knife crime, but it was about tackling the major, and that was through kickboxing and engaging the youth through there. There was outreach work as well that was going on, so we were tackling the most hardest to reach young people, because obviously there are other youth organisations around, but we was trying to hit the ones that weren't engaging in your cadets and things like that. So those are. They are engaged, they are very much active, and like I said, we've just managed to get funding for the next year as well, which is super positive.
Yes, thank you, and good luck with the funding. It's all a big support, and I know it does help to reduce the antisocial behaviour in the towns.
See, the CCTV team have recently been advertising. I'm just wondering, are they now fully staffed?
You're right, they have been advertising, and they will be come January next year. All shifts have been covered though, so can I just guarantee that all shifts have been covered? It's not like we've they've been running on empty or anything like that. We've just needed to replace them. But yes, come January next year, things will be fine.
Councillor Hay?
When CCTV goes down, are the relevant town councils and parish councils informed? Because at Chatteris Town Council, we recently found out that the CCTV had not been working for quite a length of time.
So technically, yes. And I know that sounds like such a political answer, doesn't it? Technically, yes. So what normally happens is if there's something goes down and it's a small camera, we get it fixed as soon as possible because it's a very minor inconvenience, and we get it up and running. The situation in March is in Chatteris, has been very different. So it was very much a case of not our fault. We were waiting for the permission to do certain works that needed to be done, and it has dragged on a lot longer than we had obviously hoped. So normally yes, but in this is very unusual circumstances in Chatteris at the moment. So I do apologise. I do apologise.
Obviously, we make quite a sizable contribution towards the CCTV, as it was down for quite some time, and we weren't informed. Can we look forward to getting a rebate on that figure?
No. I definitely think that's something that needs to be going through the town clerk directly to us, if that's okay. Just in this format, it's probably not the best way, but I completely understand where you're coming from. So I'd like to take that off the floor, if that's okay. Thank you.
Councillor Barber?
Can I just ask if the recent cost of living event that happened in Whittlesea is going to be repeated in any of the other towns?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the cost of living events should take place in towns across Finland. We don't do them in isolation, we do them in conjunction with Cambridgeshire County Council. The next one is likely to be in Wisbech, it's likely to be in January, but as and when they get firmed up, they will be advertised.
Councillor Booth?
Thank you, Chair. Going back to CCTV, I think I've asked for a number of years about deploying to the rural areas because they're becoming more and more mobile, the CCTVs. Has that occurred yet, or are we still looking for a deployment of CCTV to mobile to rural areas? We had an issue in Leverington with people sort of on dirt bikes and the like, sort of terrorising residents. I think that's sort of spreading throughout the whole rural area. I'm certainly having complaints from Parson Drove and Murrow about it, and I think there's an opportunity there. But CCTV just seems to stop in the towns, even though we've been told it can be deployed to the rural areas. So has it occurred yet?
Sorry, I preempted that and cut you off at the end. Sorry. So we can. It will be very much led through the police, though, obviously, about needs. So unless it's something that the community needs on a day-to-day basis, that's not necessarily what we would do. If the police contacted us, we do have the ability. We just have to be contacted. Would you like me to check up to see what's happened in that area specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect it hasn't been reported, a lot of the issues, because I think the whole reporting of crime to the police is, it's a barrier. People say they go online to fill in the instant form, and after, half an hour, I've lost the will to live. A family member of mine recently was involved in an incident. They tried reporting it, and they were just kept in the loop answering the same question. So there's real technology issues there. But I think it's something we need to look at, and also with the new sort of restructuring of the police, so that we've got a police officer in every neighbourhood that's been rolled out, and I think that's starting to show dividends. I think we need to engage with them as well, because they'll know clearly should know clearly what's happening in the individual community. So I think we need to try and get some mechanism in place to be able to tap into that and use the CCTV in the rural areas.
Yeah, just in terms of, I think one of the issues we have got the ability to do, because of now how we do, how the transmission works to get it back to the control room, we do have the ability to use, to go out to rural locations now. And so, but again, it comes down, there is generally some costs involved with getting the cameras up, either on a temporary or more permanent basis. So a practical example in the rural villages is Doddington. So Doddington, we have now a camera located in Doddington, and they have funded that, the provision of that camera there, and contribute to the running costs. So that's an example of how a rural village has managed to go about doing that. And I know we've got one other village that because we've had an upgrade of the system, we're going to get in very shortly as well to potentially look at a similar scheme in their village.
Thank you. Sounds like we're having some progress, but very slow.
Just quickly touched on part of the subject I wanted to talk about, because I know these cameras are going to be manned from January, but if I could rewind a little bit, I was a victim of crime myself, and they picked it up on the CCTV, but they couldn't see the faces and they couldn't see the number plates, so no prosecution could be made. What point I'm going to ask is, what state of the cameras and equipment is it in Finland? How much needs replacing with modern equipment? What sort of system are we working on? I mean, is a lot of this stuff useful, even if you see that you can't do anything because you can't see the detail in it?
So our CCTV is pristine. You could literally see the fillings in the mouth if they smile wide enough. And I will openly, I've always said it to anybody, if you would like to come along to the CCTV room, please do, because you will not believe it. I think we've all got this preconceived idea that it's that grainy view where you can just about make out as a human rather than any other features. And I cannot tell you enough, it is absolutely pristine. And all of them are. So it,
true for all of Finland, is it?
Genuinely, yes, it really is. And honestly, please do come along. That's for anyone in the ONS committee. Please do come along and have a look. It's almost a pity that we can't show the public exactly what we see. I would love to go in there with a little camera to show everybody, because it is absolutely outstanding quality. And that is every single camera that we've got.
Okay. I've got a question about attendance levels at Active Finland. So how will Active Finland maintain the attendance levels despite the reduced funding that they've had?
So realistically, we won't. Because we're not got that funding anymore. Those staff members will be going over to the new provider that's doing it. Personally, I think it's a real pity. I think we was in a great position to provide that community-focused support. However, I guess the only positive will be that they will be continuing in a different format, not just through us. We still have a post. We still have a 20-hour post that we have got. So there will be certain things still being delivered, things like the tea dance, Ramblers, which we're now renaming to us. So there will be still things going on, but realistically the attendance won't be the same because we just don't have the funding and the staff to deliver the projects.
And my other question was around the swim numbers. What actions are being taken to address learning to swim?
So the constant, if you've ever gone swimming at the moment, all you can see is the posters and it's being kind of drammed. Even I started thinking about taking lessons, and I swim quite confidently because it was that forward. So they are advertising, it is on their social media, even I can see that. And it is, I must admit, me and another colleague go swimming very regularly, and it is full of small humans jumping around and learning to swim. So they've definitely got it, and hopefully the numbers keep increasing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
First of all, can I just say that I've actually been to the control centre, and I would fully endorse your comments on clarity of the recordings, the pictures. Absolutely impressive. It is. If fellow councillors haven't been yet, it's well worth a visit. That having been said, my question is, I suppose I should know the answer, I'm sure somebody, and it's probably fairly obvious, but on page 7 of the report regarding housing back into use, there's 2 tables, 1 and 2, and they both refer to LTE, 6 to 11 months, and LTEP, 12 months. What on earth do they mean?
I'll try and answer that one for you. Yeah. So the information I've got is LTE is long-term empty. Like I said, so that's over 6 months. And I don't quite understand what it is. LTEP is long-term empty premium, which is over one year.
They pay more.
Thank you. I thought it'd be, I tried every combination I could think of to work it out, but thanks for that.
Councillor Boyce-Baird.
Thank you. I know we did touch on risk lightly at the start, but which areas within communities are most at risk of performance deterioration in 2026?
I think all homelessness personally, and not because of anything that the officers are doing. I don't think it's anything through lack of work. It's not that. It's just, I just think demand, and I do think things are going to get an awful lot worse. And this is a bit of a political thing because I don't know how else to do it. But I do think that the decisions that the government are making are going to be so counterproductive, and I don't think anyone realises the level and scale of those changes. And I don't think we've even realised it and seen it yet. And I think that is going to cause a very significant problem to all councils, but us as well financially. So I think that all the work we're doing, everything that's being done to try and move existing people out of bed and breakfast, we could get that down to, single digits. And I think we could potentially in a year or 2 years' time have that right back up again through no fault of our own. So I do think that is a serious risk.
Thank you. Agenda item 8. Agenda item 8. This is the use of waiver provisions. The report in relation to item 8 can be found at pages 49 to 52 of the agenda pack, and confirms the occasion since the last meeting when I, as the chairman, have been asked to exercise my authority to waive the ordinary requirements in relation to the forward plan. Is that duly noted?
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item 9. There's an update on previous actions, and you'll find this information at pages 53 to 54 of the pack. Is that also duly noted? Thank you. And agenda item, I don't know why it's appearing as 13 here, but it's 10, isn't it? Yeah. Says the next item on the agenda is the future work programme, which is at pages 55 to 60 of the pack. The future work programme sets out the planned business for the panel for the forthcoming municipal year. Are there any questions or are there any suggestions in relation to the future work programme?
Point I make every year about the agenda for the January item, fees and charges should be before the draft budget and draft business plan.
Noted. Agenda item 11, that was the any items deemed urgent, and there are none. Sorry.
There was one other thing, just on the March meeting, we've got road safety partnership update. Is this Vision Zero, and will we have someone from Vision Zero in attendance? Because they're the ones that are the lead. So if we ask the community safety partnership, half the things they'll say is it's down to Vision Zero because they're the lead. So I think we need to get them there as well. Yeah.
Sorry, the next item is 12, is it? The numbering on my guide is wrong. So I think it's 12, and it's it's the final item on the agenda to provide the opportunity to discuss any items which are considered urgent, and I confirm that there are none. So this marks the end of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed. The next meeting of ONS is scheduled to take place on the 19th of January at 10 a.m. Thank you all for attending.